Hi Year 4, this is your maths learning video for the whole of week 6. So once you've watched day 1, make sure you pause the video before you're ready for day 2. So today you're going to be writing Roman numerals up to 20. So we've done some Roman numerals in class, but they are quite tricky, so we're going to go over them again and do them in a bit more detail. So the Romans used letters to write numbers. They used I for 1, V for 5, and X for 10. And the Romans made the numbers by adding together the numerals. For example, VI is 6, and that's because V means 5 and I means 1, so 5 plus 1 is 6. And also, XV is 15, because X means 10 and V means 5, so 10 plus 5 is 15. So that's what they did for most of their numbers. They added the numerals together. However, there were some different rules. So the Romans didn't want to write lots of numerals next to each other to make a number, so they made a rule to stop this from happening. So one smaller numeral can be written in front of a larger numeral to show that that number was subtracted from the total. So this always happens with numbers that have 4s and 9s in them. Let me show you some examples. Instead of writing 4 as I, you write it as IV, because it shows that 5, which is V, take away I, which is 1, is 4, okay? So as it said at the top, a smaller numeral, which is I, is written in front of your larger numeral, which is V, to show that it was subtracted. Okay, and then instead of writing VI as 9, 5 plus 4, you write it as IX, which is 10, which is your X, take away 1, which is your I, and that's 9, okay? So even though this sounds a bit confusing, you just got to remember that this rule is for any number that has a 4 or a 9 in it. So 4, 9, 14, 19, any number like that. So we're going to go through an example together. Let's look at 19. So you've got 1 10 and 9 1s. So a good way to help yourself work this out is to start with the 10s, and let's work out what our 10s column is. So you've got 1 10, and we know that 10 is X, so that's easy. Then in our 1s column we've got 9, and as we just learned, you don't write 9 as VI because it's really long. Okay, you write it as IX because it's 10 take away 1. So then let's push those together, and we've got XIX is 19, okay? And you do that for any number with a 4 or a 9 in. So the first thing you have to do today is you have to help Holly find her way home by writing the Roman numerals next to the numbers, okay? So our steps to success says, look at your help sheet, find the numeral, I, V or X, that's closest to but not more than the value you need to make. So you don't want one that's more than, but then once you've got your one that's closest to, you have to just add on the rest of the numerals you need. Okay, and remember, if the number has 4 or a 9, you need to use the special subtraction rule. So let's have a look at 7 together. You can see I've just circled that. So the three numerals we've got that we know now is I, V and X, and as our steps to success say, we need to find the numeral that's closest to but not more than the value we need to make. So the one that's closest but not more than 7 is 5, okay? So we've got V, which is 5, plus something is 7, so we need to work out that. So 5 plus something is 7, we know that 5 plus 2 is 7. So that's the other numerals that we need. So 2 is II, okay? So then V, 5 plus II, 2 is 7. So VII. Okay, and you need to do that for the rest of the numbers on your sheet. So moving on to day 2, you're again writing Roman numerals to 20. What you need to do today is you're ordering Roman numerals from smallest to greatest. You've got the second part of your sheet is ordering them from greatest to smallest, so you need to look carefully at the question. But we're just going to go through the first example together. So your steps to success says, look at the numerals, add them together to make a total using the help sheet from your first day of learning. And remember, if there is an I before a V or an X, this is the subtraction rule that makes the number with 4 or 9. So let's look at the first one. Okay, we've got ix. Now, it said if there's an I before a V or an X, that's a subtraction rule. So here we've actually got 10 take away 1, which is 9. We know that IX is 9. Second one, we've got XV. So I know that X is 10 and V is 5. So 10 plus 5 is 15. Then I've got XIII. I know that X is 10 and I is 1. So 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 13. And then I've got VIII, so that's 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 8. So now you've worked out what your numerals mean, you need to order them from smallest to greatest. Okay, and then the last part of your sheet today, you have some sequences in Roman numerals, and we're just going to go through B together because I think that was a bit trickier. So what you need to do when you're doing these sequences is you first need to work out what the Roman numerals are. So the first one is V plus I plus I plus I, and we know that's 8. And the second one is IX, which is 9, because it's 10 take away 1. Okay, so now we need to look at the pattern that's happening. So we're adding on 1 to get from 8 to 9. So then the next one would be adding on 1 as well. So what's 1 more than 9? And you need to work out what the gap is going to be, and then keep going. Moving on to your day 3, and it's getting a bit tricky today because we're now going to be writing Roman numerals to 100. So we're going to be learning a few more symbols today that we'll need. So, unlike us, the Roman numerals did not use place value or 0. When they needed to make a larger number, they used a new letter, okay? So we already learned that V is 5 and X is 10, but when they did 50, they used L, and when they did 100, they used a C, okay? So L is 50 and C is 100. So to make most numbers to 100, the numerals are added together like we already learnt. For example, XXX is 30 because 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30, which is quite simple. And then LXX is 70 because we know that L is 50 now. So that's 50 plus 10 plus 10. Okay, so that's 70. However, the subtraction rule still is the same for numbers with a 4 or a 9 in. So for example, XL is 40 because you've got your 50, which is L, take away 10 because the X is before the L. That's 40. And then XC is 90 because you've got 100, which is your C, take away 10. Okay, so let's go over one example together. So let's look at 44, which is another number with a 4 or a 9 in. So 44. Let's do the tens first. So 40 is XL, and we know this because it's 50 take away 10. Okay, so you put the X before the L. And then 4 is IV, okay, because it's 5 take away 1. So now we just need to push these together, and we've got XLIV is 44. Okay, so think really carefully about the numbers with 4s or 9s in, because they always need to use this subtraction rule. So the first thing you need to do today is you need to write the Roman numerals next to the numbers you've been given, and we're going to go through 65 together. So let's circle 65. So we've got 6 tens and 5 ones in the number 65. Okay, so let's look at the tens column first. 6 tens, we know that's 60. Okay, and the Roman numeral that's closest to 60 but not more than 60 is 50, which is L. So we know that 60 is going to be LX because 50 plus 10 is 60. Now let's look at the ones column. We've got 5 and we know that 5 is just V. Okay, so let's put them together. 65 is LXV. Okay, and you need to do that for the rest of your sheet. Moving on to day 4, you're going to continue today writing Roman numerals to 100. So what we need to do is we're doing more ordering from smallest to greatest, but it's a bit trickier today because the numbers are bigger. So we need to look at the numerals, add them together to make a total, and then we need to always remember if there's an I before a V, X, L, or C, this uses the subtraction rule, and that means it's a number with a 4 or a 9 in. Okay, so let's look at the first one together. XXII. So I know that X is 10 and I is 1, so I've got 10 plus 10 plus 1 plus 1, that's 22. Second one, x, v, I. That's x is 10 plus v is 5 plus I is 1 plus I is 1. So 10 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1 is 17. And then the next one, x, v, that's 10 plus 10 plus 5 is 25. And the last one, x, that is 10. And then because there's an I before the x, that's our special subtraction rule. So I actually know that that means 9 because it's 1 less than 9. So it's 10 plus 10, take away 1, which is 19. Then you just need to order those from smallest to greatest. Okay, good luck with the rest of your learning this week.